This is English shorthand dictation number 79 and the dictation speed is 140 words per minute. Ready? Start. 30 years ago, on August 7, Indian politics and society changed. In a historic move, the VP Singh government decided to implement the recommendations of the Mandal Commission and open up reservations for other backward classes in government jobs. This came in the wake of the gradual political rise of the backward communities, which was due to a set of complex factors. The first was the demographic weight of the backward communities. The second was the fact that OBCs were not a natural constituency of the Congress and preferred peasant-based formations, social parties and regional parties. All of them were on the ascendant at that time. The third factor was the impact of the Green Revolution, which led to their economic empowerment and desire for upward professional mobility. The immediate political trigger for Mr. VP Singh's decision was an effort to counter the Mandir politics of the Bharatiya Janata Party, which sought to prioritize religion over caste. But its impact went way beyond that. The Mandal movement saw ferocious backlash by sections of upper caste. This opposition was articulated on 2 points. The first point was that reservations compromised merit, and the second was that if at all reservations should open up beyond what was offered to scheduled castes and tribes, it should be on economic lines. These arguments hid beneath it a real fear of losing power and opportunities. It launched an era of open hostility between upper castes and backward communities, particularly in the Hindi heartland. OBCs became a force to contend with, and it is no surprise that no government in Uttar Pradesh or Bihar can now be formed without their active support. But it also opened up a Pandora's box. Firstly, those communities which did not have a share in the reservation pie were enraged, and political parties, in order to appease these communities, continued to expand reservation to the extent that now economically weaker sections of dominant communities avail quotas. In many states, there is over 70% reservations in key spheres. This has undermined the entire purpose of reservation, which was envisaged as a tool to address historic injustice. It has now become an exercise in power distribution and employment generation. Secondly, within OBCs, some communities benefited more than others, which led to a political divide and demands for subcategorization. The process of subcategorization is currently underway. Over the years, the implementation of Mandal Commission's recommendations has empowered communities, but the entire architecture of reservations needs a review with the aim of creating a just, inclusive and equal society without pandering to populist movements. By giving reservation to OBCs in employment, Mr. VP Singh was fulfilling only one half of the first implementation of the Mandal Commission. The Mandal Commission was set up on January 1, 1979 under the chairmanship of B.P. Mandal. It submitted its report on December 31, 1980. The second half of the Commission's recommendation was the reservation for OBCs in central educational institutions. The OBCs had to wait till 2006 for this. The Mandal Commission had also recommended land redistribution and change in relations of production. The Commission said in its report that reservations in government employment and educational institutions, as also all financial assistance, will remain mere palliatives unless the problem of backwardness is tackled at its root. It also underlined that bulk of the small landholders, tenants, agricultural labor, impoverished village artisans and unskilled workers belong to scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and other backward classes. It was the Commission's firm conviction that a radical transformation of the existing production relations is the most important single step that can be taken for the welfare and upliftment of all backward classes. No union government has taken any substantial steps to bring about the structural change that was advocated by the Mandal Commission. We are moving in the opposite direction. Even though OBCs have got 27% reservation in employment and education, implementation remains inadequate. Agriculture, the backbone of the rural economy, has become economically unviable. Industrial capital remains firmly in the hands of the upper castes. Last month, the central government admitted in the Madras High Court that OBCs were not given reservation in the All India quota of medical seats in courses such as the Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery and Bachelor of Dental Surgery since 1986. This will hopefully change from next year, as the High Court has given clear directions to set up a committee to look into this issue. But one wonders how many such other cases exist in which OBC reservation is not being implemented just because no one has noticed yet. For example, the Indian Institutes of Management do not offer reservation in teaching posts and have no intention of doing so in the future. These 20 IIMs had requested the Union government to include them in the institutions of excellence category, which would exempt them from the implementation of reservation in faculty positions. The data collected by some scholars shows that OBCs occupied only 8% posts in the class A of central government services and only 10% of the class B posts. These figures demonstrate the severe underrepresentation of the communities that make up more than half of India's population. The history of reservation for the backward classes goes back to 1902, when Shahu Maharaj, the ruler of the princely state of Kolhapur, reserved 50% jobs for backward castes, which included all communities except forward groups such as Brahmins, Prabhus, Shenvis and Parsis. When India's constitution came into force in 1950, the question of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes was already settled. But what is meant by backward classes and who should be included in this category were questions that remained mired in controversy for decades. The Jawaharlal Nehru government set up a backward class Commission in 1953, which drew up a list of 2,399 communities, listing them as backward, but the government did not act on this report. The Nehru dispensation was largely hostile to the idea of accepting caste as the basis for defining backward classes. This view was shared by the upper caste dominated media and academia too, which would have preferred secular criteria such as income, literacy or occupation. The belief that acknowledging ascriptive units such as caste would make them firmer in the minds of people was held by many political leaders and thinkers. Due to the government's inertia, the OBC category could not gain any meaningful traction nationally until August 7, 1990. Retrospectively speaking, the 4 lost decades did immense harm to OBCs. They remain severely underrepresented in government jobs and the corridors of powers, and after the promising start of the 1990s, their political representation has also weakened. Hopefully, the 30th anniversary of the Mandal movement will give a new fillip to their politics. On August 5 and 6 last year, the Narendra Modi administration took 2 steps that fundamentally altered the lives of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. First, it removed the special status that the state enjoyed in the Indian Union under Article 370 of the Constitution. Then Parliament enacted the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act, which demoted and divided the state into 2 union territories. To ensure that there was no protest against these steps, the Modi administration arrested all the state's political leaders, except those belonging to the Bharatiya Janata Party, imposed Section 144, and snapped all communications in and with the state. The BJP claimed these measures would improve security and give the people of Jammu and Kashmir the same rights as prevailed in the rest of India. 1 year has passed. How do we assess those claims? Take security first. There has been a sharp rise in insecurity on the borders, but some improvements internally. We are still struggling to reverse the Chinese incursions into Ladakh, and cross-border firing by Pakistan has risen sharply. Internally, there has been a drop of around 30% in casualties comparing the period from August 2019 to July 2020 with the same period in the preceding year. But we also find a rising trend in casualties from April 2020, which is worrying. The reduction in casualties was achieved at considerable human cost. According to figures given by the Jammu and Kashmir administration, this came at the cost of the detention of 6,600 people, including children, under the Draconian Public Safety Act, the continuous imposition of Section 144 to date, the restriction of mobile telephony and internet, and a new media policy that allows security agencies to censor media outlets.